the way I look at Kliff is this is a guy that's been a head coach, that's done a bajillion press conferences. He's kind of been through the ringer, both with Kyler and his own career, going back to USC and like the ups and downs of college and being a quarterback. He wasn't as enthusiastic talking with us, but I do think Kingsbury provided some solid answers to some interesting questions. None more interesting to how do you develop a quarterback?
First off, you got to have talented players to work with. There's no doubt. I've been very fortunate to be around some really good players, good people. But I just try to figure out what makes them tick. Everybody's different. Everybody learns differently. Everybody processes differently, likes different plays, sees the game differently. So I really try to get to the bottom of who they are as a person, who they are as a player, and build it around them.
We're going to be a coordinator instead of a head coach. What are some of the differences that will be in those two different roles, and are you looking forward to some of those differences?
Being able to just focus on the offense will be great. You know, Dan has a bunch on his plate. I've sat in that seat, and so you're dealing with the entire picture. With me now, it's focusing on that group and trying to maximize who we are personnel-wise, coaching staff-wise, and being the best we can just in that area. So to be able to back up and do that again is exciting, to put all that focus just into that and ready to get to work.
A lot of talk about collaboration between yourself and Dan. How do you kind of foresee that communication going, and how involved do you expect Dan Quinn to be in how the offense is run?
Yeah, as much as he wants to be. You know, he's the head coach, and so however he wants to do it, we're going to do it that way. I understand that. He understands that. And so as much input as we can get for him, the better. I mean, he's a guy who can tell us, hey, this is what the defense is trying to do, see it from a different point of view than us. And so I'm excited to work with him from that angle and, see where we're going to take this.
You're right about Kliff. He wasn't, the highest energy, but I think he gave some solid information there, particularly about your question on the quarterback. And I thought that was kind of, we know that that's the most important thing that's happening moving forward. The other piece that I thought was very interesting of what Kliff said, I asked him about Bobby Johnson coming in as the offensive line coach. And instead of kind of taking it in a running game direction, he talked about the work that he did with Josh Allen as a mobile quarterback and then with Daniel Jones in New York. And I thought that was very interesting because I think that gives you a nice little view into kind of, what he's looking for in a quarterback here in D.C. And, he obviously wants somebody who can move around a little bit. He said as much, but I think he's also going to be looking for somebody that can tuck the ball and run a little bit and affect the game that way. So it was interesting hearing him kind of go that direction with those questions.
Yeah, and I mean, Kliff was definitely different than Witt in that he was kind of low energy and somewhere between like, I'm obligated to do this versus I want to do this. But he did give good answers when he was asked good questions, I thought. Like, he wasn't just going to sit there and give you a good soundbite because he's excited about the job, right? He would give you a thoughtful answer when thoughtful questions were asked. And I liked how he kind of expanded on the air raid offense that, like, hey, man, I'm thrilled that, I'm associated with that. We're not running an air raid offense anymore. That was a college thing. And he talked about the late Mike Leach, who he obviously has a ton of love and respect for, but that, run pass balance is important and marrying the play action is important. He was asked about, what are the kind of traits you want in a quarterback? And he joked, the guy that plays for Kansas City, which is telling the truth. Everybody wants Mahomes traits. I think there's an overly simplistic thought that's like, oh, well, he coached Caleb Williams. He likes Mahomes. He wants Caleb. Everybody on the planet wants Mahomes. And sure, Caleb looks really good, but I don't know. And it's early in the process and a lot could change. If we're timestamp guy, it's February 15th at 3:46 p.m. But like, I don't equate Kliff's arrival working with Caleb Williams to they're definitely trading up to number one. I still feel like they're staying at 2 and taking whoever's there. And I think both Drake May and Jaden Daniels can move. But man, listening to Kliff, especially when he talked about, he mentioned Lamar, he mentioned guys' ability to move when plays break down. If I had to pick a horse in the race today, seems like Jaden sounds like what he's looking for. And what you mentioned with Bobby Johnson and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think across the board, it sounds like they want somebody that can do more of the things that Jaden Daniels and Caleb can do, and not necessarily looking for a true pocket passer per se. But to expand on the air raid offense thing, which I thought was, again, interesting. You talked about it was bringing in a guy like Anthony Lynn to be your run game coordinator, who has kind of as much experience as he has. He's a guy that is gonna pound the table to run the football. And you look at what San Francisco did out there, and they were a run first team. As good as Purdy became, they were a run first team, and they did a lot of interesting things with their offensive line to free up Christian McCaffrey to run now. And for Kliff to kind of talk about that run pass balance, I think is an important kind of self-reflection for him, because his time in Arizona was spent much more, up tempo, throwing the ball, and then kind of relying on Kyler Murray with his legs to run around. I think that, Dan Quinn talked about wanting to take a 360 view after he left the Falcons to get better and to learn from his mistakes. It kind of sounded like Kliff was saying some of those same things here.